Hi there, I'm Tim Irvine.
And I'm Stacy Irvine. Welcome to the Totum Wellness Podcast.
Welcome to the Totum Wellness Podcast. We're happy to have Dr. Tamara Kung with us again. Tamara, welcome back to our podcast. Good to have you.
Thank you for having me again. It's always fun.
Obviously, you're a naturopathic doctor and have been here at Totum for coming up on close to 5 years now, which is pretty exciting.
Fast.
So fast.
Goes fast. Yeah, exactly. And I think that, one of the things that how I describe you to people is you're a food first practitioner. I know that within the field of naturopathy, I guess the bad rap would be the amount of supplements that some naturopaths prescribe, but you really try to stay away from that and focus more on real food, supplement when necessary, when the evidence shows it. But that's one of the things that I really, really like. And you've taught me a lot. I know with Stacy as well, directly, but also through me, because we've done a lot of conversations with individuals, corporates, and that sort of thing. I know you love to travel and recently have gotten a little bit of a taste of Airstream life.
Oh my gosh, I can't wait to get back in there.
The best. We're huge fans.
How was cooking in the Airstream?
It was so cool. So Trader Joe's was a big friend there because, you have the full fridge and the counter space was enough, but every time you could just grab a bag of salad greens and we had, tofus or whatever thing. It was just so easy to travel that way for a month. So I've never eaten so well camping. And the Airstream just made there's so much storage inside that thing. It was so perfect. And yeah, we didn't have hot water sometimes, but that was okay.
You got your cold plunge in.
Yeah, we got the cold plunge in,
plunge.
Especially nice in Joshua Tree when it was so hot. So it was fine.
Amazing.
Well, no, I think you told me when you got back, you had seen every sunset and every sunrise for however many weeks you were on the trip.
4 weeks. Yeah. Just being in tune with the day, I felt so much more alive. Sometimes when I'm in the city, I don't even look at the sky. I forget. Right. And just being able to see that daylight. And we know in the science, that's the most powerful trigger for waking up and getting all of our organ function going. It's what every living organism actually responds to is the light of day. So it was just really good to remember that and also to feel the difference in that. So.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
And how off track we are as urbanites. So people living in especially big cities, because it's hard to get outside of a big city. If you're in a small center of 30,000 people, it's a lot easier to get into the country, so to speak. But we feel the same pain that you do when you're here for too long.
I try to simulate it at home. I'll light candles and brush my teeth, or, I'll just make sure I put my blue light blocking glasses so everything's warm and glowy at night. But then I try to get outside, walk the dog, or go for a walk in the morning. To try to simulate some kind of likeness.
Yeah. And there are good places of nature here. It's not the same as Joshua Tree, but
still beautiful in
we
its own
have
way.
some beautiful parts as well.
Sure.
Yes. Have you guys been to Airpalooza or the big Airstream convention?
No, we
yet?
have not yet.
Okay. Yeah.
Needs to be on
in the
list.
future.
Yeah.
We're
Maybe
going
we can
to
go together.
We're going to take notes from your trip. We're going to figure out a way to do it one day.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for coming today. I know we got some female-focused nutrition conversation that we're going to be getting into. And Stacey, I think you've got question number one.
Definitely many questions.
Ask away.
I think the idea that led to you and I had conversations about this is that it's super interesting that after a lifetime of very little conversation about menopause, perimenopause, women's health, there seems to be an explosion of it over, let's say, the past 5 years. Even this year, I'm noticing it's just every year goes to the next level. That is fantastic. I've been involved on several panels of speaking to women about, the pharmaceutical options, nutrition, exercise, all these different things. However, I do find when it comes to nutrition, supplements, it there's a general feeling of being overwhelmed by all of the information. And it's also coming from so many different sources, whether it's social media, whether it's someone you're working with in fitness, whether it's your girlfriends, whether it's your mom or other family members. Everybody right now seems to have an opinion on this. A lot of them are not collaborative. A lot of them are coming from different directions. And I'm wondering, from a nutrition standpoint, it would be great to touch on practical and easy. How can we make this work in our lives? And then something that you and I really believe in is having enjoyment with doing it.
Yeah, practical, easy, and yummy. Always.
Perfect. So when it comes to women, perimenopause, menopause, what are the areas you think we need to focus on the most?
Yeah, so I think we should definitely cover bone density thing, and the symptoms of hot flashes or insomnia are really big and what I see a lot clinically. And then we can talk about protein intake as well, which goes hand in hand with the bone density because a lot of women want to gain that muscle mass too. So I think those are the 4 big areas that we can cover today for sure.
Fantastic. So let's start with bone. What should we be doing for that? What are our top few things that we need to do for our bone health?
Yeah, so it is the resistance training and teaching your body to load in different ways, in a variety of ways. It's not the same kind of movements that we, just walking or one treadmill is not enough. Women need to be loading. And contrary to what our society has kind of shown women, we need to be building muscle and lifting heavy things. And I think there's still a lot of women, who are perimenopausal now, who's like, I've never lifted weights before and I don't know how. So I think this is an area where we have a lot of good professionals here and, work with a trainer to make sure that you start the foundations in a safe way. But ideally, women need to lift heavy and really intensely as well. And especially when you enter the perimenopause field, we need to start really going extreme to like higher intensity things or heavier loads, and then also recovering really well. And that kind of dynamic and pressure on our bones helps it grow and stimulate our bone strength that way too. So movement, I think, is one of the biggest ways to protect our bones. And a lot of people in our totem community can really, see that benefits of that. The second one is nutrition. I'm going to say, side note, the calcium supplementation. What we see in studies is it's actually not effective. So the big study that covered this a long time ago, the Women's Health Initiative, they were actually finding that calcium was, effective, but there was no concerns, no risks. But they were comparing women who were already supplementing with calcium versus women who are supplementing high dose calcium. So they weren't doing calcium versus no dose calcium.
Right.
So no cardiovascular risk with that supplementation from already to higher dose. But they redid the study and they put women who have never taken calcium supplements before and started high dose calcium for their bones. And they found that there is an increase in cardiovascular risk. So That's because when we take a calcium supplement, that quick intake and absorption of high dose calcium causes our blood to coagulate a little bit more. So there is more stickiness, which puts us at risk for, heart disease.
We do not want strokes.
That. We don't want that. So as nature intended, food sources of calcium don't show that kind of quick coagulation in our body, and it's absorbed much more steady, which is why I also like to focus on food sources of calcium.
I love it. And the supplements taste like drywall. So there's that too.
What's the high dosage supplement amount? And then what's a food equivalent? And obviously you've identified that the food equivalent's better already.
Right. So the high doses that usually comes in 1,000 milligram capsules, and you can do 1 to 2 capsules. So up to 2,000 milligrams per day, depending on what their bone density, their T-scores have measured, right? Okay. So it's per
but
patient
to be clear,
basis.
we're saying do not do that.
Yeah. Don't do that.
Don't do that.
But just get just a sense of what is high dose, because people won't necessarily know what high dose is. and then the food equivalent.
Yeah. So the food equivalent, we want to aim for about 1,200 milligrams of calcium. So the equivalent would be like a cup of tofu will give you about, I think, 400 grams of or milligrams of calcium. And then you have your leafy greens, which will add a few more hundred. So I look at it from a plate perspective. So cup of tofu and then your 2 or 3 cups of green leafies, which can be cooked or raw, will give you almost 1,000 milligrams already.
Oh, great.
Right?
Okay.
So
a cup of green leafy is
2 to 3 cups. Yeah.
how
Is about
much?
like 1 to 200.
1 to 200.
Mhm.
And are all green leafy equal, or is broccoli better?
Yeah. So broccoli is not technically a green leaf, but it has some have more than others. So
Okay.
I'd say like spinach would be a good source, and I can
Spinach. Okay.
put together like a little doc to share as well.
That would be great.
Yeah, but those are some of the big. People don't think about green leaves as being rich in calcium, right?
Yeah.
People think just of dairy, and dairy is great, like ricotta, cottage cheese, like those are all good options as well, and also higher doses of calcium. But I think, just have a variety, because we'll talk about later, we need the proteins, we need the fibers as well. It's not just one mineral we're trying to focus on. We need to, we don't have time to eat all day long. So we want to maximize, the amount of nutrient density per bite. I would like to, and it wouldn't feel great, but that's why I like just have a variety. So there's like a whole bunch of different foods that do provide calcium for us. Some of my tops that I recommend my patients intake, especially if they have osteoporosis, is have 1 to 2 cups of soy milk a day, have a 1/4 cup of almonds, and 6 prunes. So weirdly enough, the almonds and prune combo, one of them helps upregulate osteoclast like formation, like building bones, and the other one stops the breakdown of bones. So that combo is great. And I know, Tim, you make the granola recipe.
Mm-hmm.
So for my osteoporosis or like women who want to just strengthen their bones, I say add chopped prunes to it and use almonds in that recipe as well. And you can, at least like preserve the density of your bones that way.
A quick question. So we're talking about this from a female context, but what you just described to me, the heavy lifting, this type of nutrition, presumably it doesn't matter if you're male or female, it's going to have the same positive benefit.
Yep. So, women are more at risk to having osteoporosis and fractures this way. I think only 13% of males will have some kind of osteoporotic fracture like women, depending on your body size and everything. But it doesn't hurt. Like, you need calcium too for heart function and all this stuff. So it's important for everyone, not just women, to have it.
And the big differences there's a societal, women don't lift heavy things component, which, every living being should lift heavy things.
Mm-hmm.
But the real piece that's different than from men is the perimenopause, menopause, where the hormonal profile changes so much, it has a really detrimental effect on bone mineral density. Is that right?
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. Yeah.
I would say too, there's a piece that's missing, and I'm sure, in a few years where the men are going to become the trend. It'll be like, oh my God, their bones are frail. The piece that I think is missing, that was an image that really stood out to me, was an image of a thin, frail, older woman. And I think for so many years, women have aspired to be thin. And because that's their main goal, whether they're active or not, into their 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s, they might be active. They're probably doing tons of cardio, the Jane Fonda class, all that kind of stuff. Because their goal was to be thin, they didn't actually bring in enough calories to allow their bones to build back up, because you'd be working out and then trying to eat as little as possible because your main goal was to be as thin as possible. And then we can all picture what that looks like when you hit 80, 90, 100. It's not a great skeleton to be in, but if you think about it metabolically, it makes perfect sense that is what would have been happening. And that's probably also a contributing factor to why we see way more fractures in elderly women than we do in elderly men, because I don't know a ton of elderly men who hit like 50, 60 and their main goal is to be as thin as possible. They're eating normally, they're trying to be active usually. It's an interesting dilemma that we face as women that will hopefully change
Agreed.
after this podcast.
And that's a great segue into our protein conversation as well. So we could have another whole podcast on women's body image and like nourishing women from like a, eating from a very different perspective. And one of the things that I focus on with my patients is making sure people have a healthy relationship with food. They get excited by their food and they're confident in knowing I'm eating this way because I can picture what's happening in my body, can feel the difference functionally. And women wanting to be thin, that was an aesthetic that was really striven for. But nowadays I hear women want to be strong. Right.
Strong.
And whether you're toned and strong or like you want to put on, muscle density like that. I'm really excited to hear this kind of conversation starting to take a turn, because when we see women in their 80s and 90s, we want to make sure they're as stable and strong as possible, because the number one cause of not accidental death is falling, right? Number one. And grip strength, core strength, all that stuff I'm learning with some of our trainers here are so important to build up those foundations. And protein intake is something that's really important for women to understand how to properly fuel their body before and after workouts. It's not the same as men. And I'm also excited that all this research is coming out for women, especially because we were just left in the dark for the longest time. And this is like the golden age where things are just like, it's becoming so much more fair and we can be so much more specific with our dosing and prescribing of things. It makes me want to cry how exciting this is.
It is exciting. And let's be honest, challenging.
Yeah.
So let's go.
It is. There's so much at once.
Let's go into the numbers. Again, you and I have had side conversations about this, in that the protein numbers are pretty daunting. So we are looking at, is it 0.8 grams per pound? Is that the general recommendation?
General recommendation, but as people get older, it goes up to 1.1, right? Which is hard because when we get older, people lose their appetite.
We don't want to eat as much. And we're not as active generally too. So breakfast, I'm just going to go through kind of what I'm trying to do here. And then you tell me if I'm on the right track, because this is what's manageable.
Can I tell you if you're wrong?
Yeah.
Tim first.
Tim can tell me if I'm not on the right track.
I just got a dopamine hit.
Yeah. Always ready to pounce.
Okay. Breakfast, 2 eggs. And then I add collagen to 1 cup of coffee. And I add protein powder to my second cup of coffee, but it's really like half a scoop. What do I add
You're
there?
about 30 to 35 grams.
Okay,
there.
good. 30 to 35 for breakfast. Then lunch would be leftovers so today I had some pasta, some vegetables, and 2 kind of chicken leg things. Not big, but like 2, maybe they'd be as big as like half a breast of chicken. Where would you say I'd be around there?
That'd be about 20 grams.
30, 20.
About 55 grams, I'll say.
Okay. And then dinner. See, I know I'm short, which is I eat a lot. Like that, it's amazing that I'm short, and I'm actually trying, and I'm still short. Dinner would be, let's say, okay, so let's take last night's dinner. I had paella, so there was shrimp in it, and then I had 2 more pieces of chicken.
There's a little bit of meat in that too.
Yeah, in the paella, like it had some shrimp and some fish in it,
and sausage.
And some sausage too. Yes. So
that'd probably be another 35.
I enjoyed the sausage part. Okay, so another 30. So what's my total? I'm low, aren't I?
You're low.
I know.
I think you're hitting about 85, 85, 90.
Okay, that's like kind of crazy to me, because look, I do eat like probably I eat more than the average person, like more than my friends my age. I'm 55. I eat a lot of calories. I kind of just assumed, I've never done this specific math before. I kind of just assumed I was no problem.
So
I'm at
if
85.
I can just interrupt for a moment, because anybody who's listening or watching was going to start to envision, well, what are my meals like? So a typical average size meal with a protein serving probably is about 30 grams of protein.
I think it's great that you're including protein in every meal. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And at breakfast, a lot of people don't get any protein at breakfast, right? Especially if you're a toast, cereal, orange juice, traditional, societal breakfast.
Or even oatmeal with no
Yeah.
protein.
Right.
Okay, help me, Tamara. What do I do? How do I get to 120?
Okay,
so
you're
I'm at
close.
85. Yeah.
Any thoughts, Tim?
I've got so many thoughts. It's okay to be wrong, Stacy.
Thank you. I'm not really wrong.
I think you should get more protein.
Oh my God. Okay. What do I do, Tamara?
So if I could,
Yeah.
I think that, when you're doing any one of those meals to add in, like at lunch, it would be easy for you. Do one of those protein drinks. Because we do them like the green drink as an example.
How much protein does it have though?
20 grams is a scoop.
Okay.
So you by having one of those 1 scoop drinks, you can do half a bottle. So call it 500 milliliters of a green based drink. It's the United
just
brand
over 100
that we carry.
Yeah.
That would automatically get you another 20 grams. And now you're closer to 100. Yeah.
Still. Do you get the required amount of protein?
To be honest, not always. And I'll tell you why in a moment. But I think you're so close to being there. So I'm not asking you to eat more food because I think that's a lot. Like you feel full, you're like satiated. I would never push you or my patients to overeat if you don't feel like that.
Right. Because then I'm going to be 160 pounds and then my protein's going to go up.
Yeah, exactly. We don't want to make more work for you.
It's a very bad system.
By the way, you'd still look great in that dress.
Thank you. Thank you.
So one easy swap I just see in that meal you gave me was your lunch pasta. Okay.
Yeah.
So pasta is delicious, but it's a carrier for flavor and sauce. Okay. But if we can make your pasta a nutrient vehicle as well, that would be a win, right? So for example, chickpea, lentil, or edamame noodles, that gives you 31 grams of protein per serving of that pasta.
Where the heck do I find those?
You can get it at Loblaws, you can get it at Costco even. Like most grocery stores will have those now.
Do they taste okay?
I think they're a lot better. The new chickpea one, I'll show you a picture later, is less starchy.
Super confident, but okay.
My favorite is the edamame spaghetti because it's got like a nice al dente chewiness. So we can definitely
edamame
talk.
Spaghetti.
So I think you said something interesting there, that the pasta is a flavor and
like sauce carrier.
Definitely.
So, but people listening are going to be like, well, flavor is the reason I eat food.
Yeah.
Like I want to have that flavor.
Yeah.
And then as soon as you say, alternative pasta, chickpea, whatever. So I think historically people think of that as like, oh, I'm eating a drywall. But it's not it's not the case anymore, is it? Like these things are produced and manufactured in like very tasty ways.
Yeah, it can. So whatever sauce or flavor, it'll still taste like that. And the ingredients is just like one thing. So it's a real food, just in a different form, right?
Got it.
So there's a lot of different things like you can do with the same sauce or flavors that you want to put it on like a nice rye bread. At least you're getting fiber, you're getting different kinds of whole grains from your microbiome. Or if you want to put it over lentils and bean salad, like you could do that as well. You don't have to have, some people are just like, oh, don't touch my pasta. I'm like, fine. You can put it on other carriers that are just more nutrient dense, right? So don't eat more food, just like make it every bite matter. Don't waste it if you don't have the time to eat that much.
Okay, so I'd switch that at lunch.
And then you're there. Like that's what's 105 plus 30.
Then I'm okay.
Is adding that green drink too much in terms of like food? But she's already drinking something anyway, right?
Like
I
love that
drink
green
at lunch?
Yeah.
Okay, at lunchtime I have my special drink, which is
white wine.
No.
We'll talk about
God.
that at another
No.
podcast.
No.
It kind of is a special drink. though.
It's the opposite of that. It's,
Red wine.
No. It's like
Tim's having
it's
too much fun.
greens. It's greens with who invited you to the women's talk about nutrition? Anyhow.
Somebody needs a clown. It needs a clown.
Good
The men need a
God.
spokesperson here.
Oh my God. So my lunch drink is actually important because I do sea greens, I do creatine, magnesium, a little bit of electrolytes.
Mhm.
That's what I drink at lunch.
Yeah.
So
Love it.
that's important
Yeah.
to my whole daily nutrition.
Perfect.
I
So
love that drink.
Yeah.
So now I need to add a protein to it,
yeah. So
is what Tim is saying, even though he has no knowledge about
so
that.
you could
but-
either do that or you
Yeah.
could do the pasta alternative or add some beans and lentils. So you can mix plant proteins and animal proteins in the same meal.
Right.
So if you're having chicken breast, have it with bean salad or have it with a lentil soup. Then you add another 15 to 16 grams of protein per cup. Right? A cup's
Okay.
not a lot.
I hear you. However,
Mm-hmm.
do I get excited about bean salad or pasta? Pasta.
You can have
all over.
both. if
I
you
know.
want.
Yeah. You know what I
But,
mean? That's
you haven't had
That's
yummy
my
bean
challenge.
salad.
I have not.
Mhm.
I have
And I
not.
think that there's something,
I have
Tamara,
not.
you said
Mhm.
earlier about, envisioning or having this mental image of the pasta going in or the beans. What happens with that more
Mm.
nutrient dense food
Yeah.
going into your body? So I think one of the things that's really helped me
Mhm.
since we've been having these conversations with people
Mhm.
is I have this real visual idea of, okay, this goes in and my gut health just flourishes.
Yeah.
Right. So the garden that is just so plentiful versus sparse, not much water, barren.
Yeah.
Right. Like that to me, like, so when I think about like a pasta or a beans, like I automatically go there with that. And it really has helped me appreciate food more.
Mhm.
It tastes better to me, even just having that mental image in my head.
Yeah.
Things that I would never have eaten, like Brussels sprouts. Like
Yeah.
I don't like just boiled in water Brussels sprouts. And I never have.
No.
But it doesn't make me gag anymore when I eat a Brussels sprout. Like actually,
Yay.
there's Brussels sprout recipes that I enjoy, but I know that there's this connection with how good it is for me inside
Mhm.
that really makes a difference.
I love that. And I'm really glad that you've held on to the inner rainforest analogy for your gut. And in terms of hormone balance, like your microbiome is a huge generator of hormones and like processing all these things too. We talk about that in another segment. But when you're eating foods, like when you have a bean salad in the beginning, picture not only growing your microbiome, but it also, the fiber forms a mucus gel barrier in your gut, right? And then if you have any pasta or like sugary things, you only absorb like 70% of the glucose from that. So you get less, insulin spike, less fat put onto your body this way if you line your gut with fiber first, right? So
Interesting.
veggies, beans, lentils, like all of that stuff blunts the sugar spike, less fat accumulation, and less energy crashes. So
Wow.
picture that.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but
Yeah.
that's progressive, right? So
Yeah.
if over a number of weeks you're having
Mhm.
more better fiber,
Yeah.
rich foods, that layer grows over that time. And then if you stop and you're back to, cheap carbs and that sort of thing, that's going to shrink again.
Yeah, because if you don't feed your gut bacteria fiber, they'll actually eat away at the mucus layer for food instead. And it actually destroys your mucus lining in your gut, right? So you got to feed the bacteria to nourish them so they can give you all the benefits. And also so they don't start hurting you too.
And big anti-inflammatory component with that
Yeah.
as well.
The most potent anti-inflammatory molecule is made by your microbes. It's called butyrate or like the short chain fatty acid families, but no other like antioxidant touches what your gut bacteria can make you. So if you don't like bean salad, like there's a bajillion.
Yeah, okay,
benefits.
let's go through that. Let's go through
No more
that.
pasta for you.
Because, oh God, as if.
Bean pasta.
Let's go through I'm going to put beans in my pasta.
Or like roasted lentils, like some of the fun
Yeah,
things.
let's go through that. So what would be the top? So if we have this goal, so we want to increase protein, we want to build up the gut microbiome, what would be your top 5 foods that you would say we've got to get into our diet?
Everything that's a plant. Just keep it simple. So anything that's a plant will have fiber in there to feed your bacteria. And I'm going to have to like shy away from that question a little bit because diversity is big. Right.
Okay. What things that we can eat that taste good? Let's go with that. What are your favorites?
So one of the biggest hits with my patients, a lot of people love edamame, and you can put like everything bagel spice seasoning on it. You can put whatever kind of stuff. So that's an easy snack that you can have. And 1 cup of edamame is like 15 grams of protein anyways.
Okay, easy done.
Easy, right?
And so are you saying that you're boiling up like the package with the shells? Does it matter? Does it matter if it's in the...
It doesn't matter. You can buy frozen. I buy frozen.
You buy frozen, organic, I'm
I
assuming.
honestly microwave them.
And then spice them up.
And I spice them up after.
And you buy them like that in the shell and then you just microwave them?
And
Yeah, that's so easy.
Yeah,
then you don't even
I'd
have to
also
boil
recommend
them.
putting some herbs in there.
Yes. Excellent, Tim. He's got it. Young Grasshoppers got it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Love it. Thank God Tim's here.
But it's like the beans and lentils are the big number one. All right. And then you got your colorful, like your berries and things like that are also really great. So raspberries are the most fiber rich berry. Right. We didn't know that. Avocado, huge one. It's got 13.5 grams of fiber per avocado. So I think those are some big ones. But again, I never want people to just get stuck on like a few foods because your microbiome needs the variety as well. It's not easy for people. I get it. So don't make it hard on yourselves. Maybe it's black beans this week. Next week it's chickpeas. The next it's white cannellini beans. The next is kidney beans. Like you can rotate any.
And you could probably use the same recipe of whatever you're making, but just change up the beans.
Move your hand to the right when you go grocery shopping.
I like it. What I do sometimes to save time is there's no way I'm cooking anything from scratch. So I'll get a chili that is already made, but then I buy different cans of beans and put them into the chili.
That's what I did in Airstream. I bought canned lentil soup, but I added a bag of kale and more beans to it. And then we fire roasted sweet potatoes and just like put that in. So like you can...
That's great.
Simple. Yeah. Buy the pre-made stuff and just enhance it. Yeah.
Okay, I love that.
Yeah.
Greek yogurt, cottage cheese, those types of things. What are we talking? How much protein per cup?
Greek yogurt, I believe it's 17 grams per cup. No, sorry. Greek yogurt is 7, and then I think cottage cheese is 17. Okay. Something like that.
Oh, so cottage cheese is a lot
Cottage
more.
cheese has more. Yeah, for sure. And so, Stacy, you can get your protein goals if you add the United or some kind of bean or lentil. I think just 1 cup is not a lot.
Yeah.
Okay. Or edamame, right? Then you're done.
Okay.
But I'll also bring it back in terms of timing our protein intake is really what matters more, especially if women want to build muscle strength to protect their bone health. Yes. Okay. So what we know is women, especially if you're going to go into a hard workout, we do need some kind of protein and carbohydrate. Dr. Stacy Sims mentioned this in a podcast recently to tell our bodies that we have enough fuel to push and also we're okay to like recover because our bodies are a lot more sensitive to stress and cortisol. And if we go to a hard workout unfueled, our body becomes more catabolic. It breaks down our muscle mass more quickly, which is
the energy from somewhere.
Yeah. So if women are fasting or starving and they just want like, I got to burn fat, like, that doesn't work for a women's body. For men, it can work. You can go in a fasted state a lot more easily. So for women, what they said the dose was have at least 15 grams of protein before a workout and 30 grams of carbohydrates. Okay.
It's not much.
It's not much. So what that looks like is like 2 hard-boiled eggs and like some fruit, like a pear or berries or something like that. And you can go, right? Or you could do cottage cheese, or sometimes I'll do like a smoked salmon if you want to, or avocado, right? For those who are just really need to grab and go, you can put protein powder in coffee or water, right?
Yeah.
And just maybe grab a piece of fruit or something like that on your way, right? And then you're good. But at least you can tell your body, chill. We've got fuel on board, and like you can push harder. Like women, we're like, you don't have tons of time also to work out every day. Make every moment matter. And when your body's fueled properly, you can maximize the amount of gain you get for that time.
It's amazing. I changed. I made this change recently because I loved intermittent fasting. I loved skipping breakfast because it worked so well with my schedule. And I like coffee. So I absolutely wasn't hungry. I was having 2 cups of coffee with some almond milk in it. And I was totally good. But I definitely ran out of gas in the morning workout. And so what I found was you can do cardio and keep going. Lifting weights is a huge challenge if you have no fuel, which makes sense. Now we know the science. Thank God they researched it.
I was also on that, and it was bizarre, but now we know a little bit better, and we can at least, for women, you can still intermittent fast. It's still helpful to have periods of rest for your gut and let your body heal. But for women, maybe it's easier or better to shift it earlier, your eating window. So eat in the morning. Smaller lunch, and then have an earlier dinner, and then you can fast still, but your evenings will be the fasting, right? I agree. Like, it was nice to just get on with your day and work, but if we want to like feel really great with our workouts, it's we got to fuel before, and for women, we have to fuel an hour after our workout too, right? So what the studies are showing, within 1 hour, we should be getting about 25 grams of protein in. I can't remember how many carbohydrates. I can't remember the carbohydrate number, but we should have a meal that's after one of your protein rich meals afterwards, so that your body doesn't break down muscle mass, because our bodies do that more often. Men have 3 hours window to eat your meal afterwards before you get into that catabolic state. But for women, we want to prevent breaking down all that hard work. So make sure that you fuel afterwards. So protein shake can be an easy fix for that too, if you don't have time.
And I think like one of the things that I think is important to know, like, no one needs to try to achieve perfection with anything that they're hearing on this episode. I think the important piece is, if there's something that's like, I can do that, that's where you start. Start with something easy, simple to make that change. You might notice that it's different, so it becomes really easy for you. It's like, I can do this because I feel better after the fact, rather than needing to worry about doing everything perfectly and work yourself into inaction because there's just too much. And so that, I think you talked about the variety. I think a simple way of looking at that is, always something new when you go to the grocery store. If you shop once a week, buy something new that you haven't done before. And then you suggested that. I also think thinking about it, the nutrition, similar to, I think most people understand that you not only need strength training, you need cardiovascular training, you need mobility training, maybe a little bit of soft tissue work physically, right? Whereas for food, I eat what I like, I got a good routine, I know how to do all that, but you're then shortchanged. It's like training only one physical area, only strength training and avoiding the other ones. That kind of idea in food, I think, is probably a really good idea, to spread it out, all sorts of different types of food. And I know you had that challenge that you would do with people from time to time.
Which one?
The variety.
The plant point challenge.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. That's, I give my patients a goal of hitting 150 different plants in 3 months' time. Yeah. Wow. I've had maybe 8 patients complete it in 3 months or less so far.
Wow.
Of the years I've been doing it. It's hard.
That's impressive.
Correct me if I'm wrong. But if you like leafy greens, how many different leafy greens are there?
So even if you buy the spring mix, there's like 7 or 8 different greens.
So that counts as
already.
7 or 8
That's 7 or 8 already. So, and colors matter too, right? So red, orange, yellow, green, bell peppers, different points. Mushroom varieties, there's a bajillion. Like, you can go in it and not get overwhelmed. As you said, no new recipe, just one ingredient different.
Right.
Keep it the same.
Yeah.
Otherwise,
it can be challenging, and we'll get to the enjoyment piece after. So, okay. So we've covered protein. For bones, we need to be aware of calcium, vitamin D, right? A no-brainer. We didn't mention it, but if you're not in a sunny place, we need to start, would you say mid-September?
Yeah, it depends. Yeah, it
And
depends on how your skin color matters for
right,
this one,
right,
but also how much you go outside
right.
matters.
Without sunscreen. And
Mhm.
also, I guess the bottom line with that would be get it tested.
Yeah.
See where you're at.
Yeah.
I'm really a big fan of these more advanced blood panels. Like, let's get a look at the full picture, not only the slight things that are bad on you that, you might
things
have
that
something really bad.
you're not going to die.
Yes, exactly.
Like, we need more than not
like,
death.
let's get a picture of what's happening and then go from there. So I think that's really smart. Magnesium is a tricky one. And I know a lot of people struggle with that. And so tell me recommendation, and then what do you think are some strategies for how we get that?
Yeah. So vitamin D, I agree. Like, test it before you dose, because some people can dose too high for too long, right? So any supplement, there should be a beginning and an end to your prescription. It should never be forever at the same thing, right? Same with magnesium. Like, the recommended dose is about 350 to 400 milligrams per day. 67% of adults are magnesium deficient.
Yes.
Probably because they don't eat their green leafy vegetables.
Oh, interesting.
Green
And kids too.
And
This
kids
is
don't too. Yeah.
because we have, young athletes at home. I read this statistic a long time ago and then started adding magnesium for them because I realized I looked at the foods that were high in magnesium and I realized we were not getting enough. Like, for example, pumpkin seeds, right? It is one of them. And you can tell me the other green leafy that we need to get. But it can easily be something that's totally missing from your diet. Because when I read the list, I was like, oh, there'll be people that are getting virtually none of this. So
yeah,
that's a tricky one.
Almonds, pumpkin seeds, like, those are easy to put in your granola or your granola that you make, right? And nobody will really tell the difference. Just crunchy.
You should just always, I think, have them
have
if you're okay with them.
Yeah,
right?
and you can dry roast them too to make
throw
them more
in everything
aromatic. I put it on top of my soups. Like, anything that needs a crunch, I'll probably put that on top of there as well. And then your green leafy, any green leafy that you like. Kale's a big one too. And you can do frozen kale, right? You just dump it into whatever pot of stew or chili you're making. And avocado is a good source as well, right?
Excellent.
So, just again, if you eat a variety of different foods, you likely will have your things covered and you don't need to take a multivitamin. I tell my patients, get rid of the multivitamin unless you can't eat well for a little bit, right? So I try to make sure that people find it okay. To have magnesium, you can get tested for magnesium, but magnesium you can take at a dose orally or soak it. You can also absorb it in a bath as well, which is nice during the winter season.
That's great.
Because you can absorb 60% of things through your skin directly. Scary for chemicals, but great for things like magnesium.
That's very good to know, actually. And it is really the reason I'm not prescribing it, but I'm telling my young athletes to try to get magnesium is recovery.
Yeah.
It's good for they're sometimes not great sleepers. I know they're not recovering from one workout to another, and I'm trying to get them to up, get some pumpkin seeds, get some green leaf. But the bath thing is good. I could totally get them to do that and throw it in the bath. That's
easier to do.
For some people.
Okay, I've got one last question. And this is a serious question. How, like, I'm a male in this conversation. We're really talking about women's nutrition. How can men be more supportive or knowledgeable for women who are perimenopause, menopause, postmenopause? Because, like, it's a long process, and there's a huge amount of change that happens. And so obviously we're talking about some specific things nutritionally that can make a difference for women, but like for men, how can we be better in the process?
Yeah. Come along for the ride. So, like, a lot of couples eat together, right? So adopt it and don't make, having two different meals is really hard. So some men I know like their wives say, like, my husband's not going to eat this bean salad. Like, you know, like they're not going to eat these almonds and things that I put in here. Like, I think for men, like for your own health too, like try to incorporate some of these foods or some of these habits. Like if you can work out together, for example, that's great. And that's an accountability partner that you have on side, because it's hard to do on your own. Like willpower is not enough sometimes. So try to do things together and you're not going to get any harm from it as well. But it's a really good question to understand. There's a monumental shift in women's bodies that happen, like mentally and physically, and being really considerate of like, wow, like when you see your kids go through puberty, you know, like, whew, hormones are changing, right? And you're aware, like, okay, like that reaction was, you know, likely because there's some big shifts and they're feeling something really different or they're feeling really stressed in these ways. And so I think having compassion for something that's so unseen, like perimenopause, and maybe relating it to preteens going through that puberty shift.
I never really
helpful,
thought about it that way.
right?
That's a really good way of looking, because we all know, like we all went through it.
Yeah,
right?
Everyone went through that.
So we all get that side of it, and especially if there's any parents that have gone through that teenage years, it's like, there's a lot of shit happening there.
Yeah, exactly. So it's it's not all bad, right? but it's actually there is no word in Japan for hot flashes or perimenopause. Okay. So not to say that we're like Japan, but you know, we don't have to have the awful symptoms necessarily. It's not just because we are going through these transitions doesn't mean they have to be this severe, right? So there's a lot of ways we can augment it. We talked about some of them, and also having like all the nutrient density to support your microbiome and help with all that anti-inflammatory thing. And the soy thing is actually a big one for women, to not be afraid. It's not going to cause breast cancer. That's been refuted already. Excellent. But people in Japan eat a lot more soy products and they live differently. They have a lot more plant richness and diversity in their diet too. So just incorporating even a bit more tofu, edamame, soy milk, plant diversity can reduce hot flashes by like 80%, 85%, you know? And that's huge. That's incredible. Right? And a lot of women struggle for years with this because we stick with the same standard American diet of, guess how many different foods an American eats or Canadian in a year? How many?
I can't answer because I know.
Oh, you know. Okay. Stacy, guess.
How many different foods in a year?
Yeah.
80?
20 to 40.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's like
you're wrong.
Yes, I was wrong again.
And most people in like different cultures will eat like 100, 150, 300. The average hunter-gatherer human ate over 800 different foods.
800.
Right? So
that's
again,
incredible.
Speaking to the power of our inner rainforest, I think is big. But also some of these other foods that are, you know, I'm going to say like tofu or edamame, that's functional in the sense of like that calcium, protein, and then you got fiber, right? So 3-in-1, like for women, that's a superstar.
Yeah,
for
a superstar.
For that too, right?
That is such great advice. And I also think the idea of it's a transition. You know, it's not something awful. It's not something that we have to rush out and buy a bunch of things for. We need to be supportive of each other, nourish our bodies. Our goal is to, I like the term take up space too, right? Is, you know, go through this thinking that you're going to be stronger. Maybe in your life, your kids are starting to become more independent at this age. So maybe you have more time to do exercise or do things with your friends that you love, you know, go for a hike or something with your friends or your spouse, and maybe try a few new recipes, keeping in mind these principles. I love it. I think it's a great way to go.
Feels like we're just scratching the surface, and then we've got a bunch of other episodes.
So many things. But it's always fun.
We've come up with. So Tamara, thank you so much for joining us again. And I'm being honest about this. I think it's such a great development in health and wellness that, you know, women-focused research is being done where we're learning more. Because ultimately, look, in a relationship that's long enough to go into perimenopause, menopause, and beyond, having that understanding overall really helps
everybody.
everybody.
Yeah.
So
We're all on the same team.
We're on the
yeah,
same
that's
team.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, well put. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Totum Wellness Podcast. Please follow us on Apple, Google, or Spotify and leave a 5-star review and comment. Subscribe to us on our YouTube channel, and please spread the word to family and friends.